well, some people might see some of it as heavy, we'll see, but you're streaming, thank you, David, as well, lovely. Also live, so if your camera, if you don't want to be seen on camera, it's streaming at the same time, take your camera off, change your name, make sure you're happy with who you are, please. Please change their name to King Drink, Cheeky Bugger. Because like, oh, two of me. Well, there are actually, see, there's hello from San Francisco. How amazing, nice to see you. Yeah, so last week was heavy, so it was a lot heavier. I've just asked a question on FetLife as well that I really appreciated that you can answer. And it says, do you still want these weekly? Would you want them every other week, or would you like them once a month? What would that, would that make a difference to you? So if you could, answer that for me, that's really nice. Most people are kind of saying, I think I would prefer every week. It's a weekly work, yeah. And hello from San Diego as well. It's so cool. I love all this knowledge. Oh, thank you. I get things wrong too, and I can be full of shit, but call me on it. It's fine. Let's loving the accents. Thank you. Well, when Poppy starts talking, you understand the right word then. She's going to go really shy now. Right, so. That works. That's brilliant. Eventually, the third time it worked. Who knew? Okay, so we've got 3 topics today. Let's have a quick look about what we've got. So the first one we've got is something we're going to talk about: separation anxiety. We're going to talk about separation anxiety, what it is. Let's understand it a little bit. Let's have a look at maybe some techniques. Is it unique or is it different when it comes to BDSM and power exchange? Also, what's the impact of separation anxiety if somebody has a mental health diagnosis, and what issues could it create on top, especially in a BDSM relationship? We're then just going to go through some DBT skills, because a lot of people ask for these all the time. So between the 2 of us, we might have quite a few. We're still going to turn and say, everybody buy these decks of cards. And I can't remember them all the time, but nearly everything I say that's a technique is mainly based on DBT, because they are really helpful. So we'll have a look at some techniques that people can use. Namori, can you still message each participant? You see, you shouldn't be able to. Participant can chat with hosts and co-hosts. So you can just chat with me now. I'm just going to do it that way. So I'll read out every single one. That's in theory. Is there something going on? It's not right today. It is. Okay, so you can't. That's really strange.
I can still chat with everyone.
Who's that? Sorry, who said that?
Sorry, Namoria.
Oh, I can see now. Sorry. That's really strange because most people cannot. Is Mallory set as a co-host? No, you're not set as a co-host. Maybe it's because you look, trust you anyway. Most people can't, and Namora trust you implicitly, so I'm sure that's fine. Spit that again, Deb. So I want to talk about separation anxiety. Please be good. DBT skills. And the last question is very much BDSM and DS relationships based. And that is, how do you try and maintain any sense of dominance or dynamic with somebody when you also need to be vulnerable, when you need to open up? How do you balance the dynamic against the need to admit that you're fucking overwhelmed, you feel like an imposter, and you're just being human? And then adding, how do you get back into a dynamic when you've had a metaphorical fall and don't know exactly how to occupy that same space again? So that's what we're talking about today. So we're talking about trust, really, in some respects. Okay, so let's start with separation anxiety. What is it? Really, when you start talking about basic separation anxiety, you're talking about something that happens to a child, first of all, between a very young age and around 18 months. So children get diagnosed with separation anxiety. And you're going to be looking at things like attachment theories, and we've spoken about attachment theory before. So you look up attachment theory, you look up John Bowlby, you look up Ainsworth, and you're going to be talking about the sort of pattern of attachment that children have. Originally, there were 3 or 4 versions of attachment. If you go onto my profile, I have 3 or 4 pictures that tell you about different attachment approaches and different attachment theories. Not theories, but there are about 16 classified though nowadays. There's a shit ton of different attachment patterns that adults can have in later life. However, Bowlby's original, they are very much based on whether we are securely attached, whether we're anxious, whether we're avoidant, and how we handle those forms of attachment. And you can argue that probably half the population, if not a bit more, has an attachment that isn't as healthy as it could be, because of what's happened in our childhood, because of what's happened with parents, because of what's happened just in our lives. So separation anxiety is really something that we would clinically diagnose in a child. However, some adults also have some form of separation anxiety. So Little Baby Switch says, I've taken an attachment quiz to find my style. That was very helpful. Great idea. There are some great books out there. Actually, if you want to do something that's to do with you and everything else as well, if it's a little bit heavy up front, but if you buy the book Polysecure, I don't know if you've ever heard of the book Polysecure. It's all about attachment theories and it's all about polyamory and how it works. Feel free to link it if you want to, Little Baby Switch, that'd be fine as well. There are so many tests and things that you can do online anyway. Attachment patterns used to be really popular. It used to be that everybody has an attachment issue. And actually, my daughter had a phone call earlier from one of the women locally who runs the local cat thing saying, is your cat still alive? Bear with me. And it's because 3 days ago, somebody beheaded 2 cats, literally kind of about half a mile that way. Sorry, Sammy, your face. And you can almost guarantee that somebody who is hurting cats has the potential to go on and hurt people. You can almost guarantee if you then work that back and you have a look at somebody who can hurt cats, you probably have a very serious attachment issue, which will lead into some kind of psychotic behavior. It's always based on attachment. However, the person asking this is an adult. So what happened? I think you also have to look, oh, thank you very much. We've got a link down the side if you want to have a look at, oh, that is from Polysecure. There you go. So, oh no, Namori's put the book up. Sorry, I'm with you now. That's the actual book. And Little Baby Switch has put the attachment style quiz up as well. So the book is very much about whether you're secure in who you are. What you'll find in polyamory as well, which is quite interesting, is that a lot of people are maybe polyamorous because actually their attachment style is damaged in some way, shape or form. So they need lots of people around, or they don't feel confident in having less than one person around. They need more people around, or they're really secure in their attachment and they fucking love loving a load of people. And it's really positive and really good for them. And you'll find both. So when you meet somebody, you need to make sure you meet the person that is more secure in their attachment style. If you're more secure in your attachment style, you may experience jealousy, but you'll work with it, not against it. You will experience insecurity, but you will communicate about it. For those who have more of an avoidant or an anxious or some kind of disrupted attachment pattern, those are the people that will really struggle. You're also going to find that attachment patterns are also about mental health issues. If somebody has some form of dependent mental health disorder, a personality disorder of some kind, people with OCD, and people who are actually on the spectrum. Those groups of people are more likely to have some form of attachment pattern that's been not as positive or secure as it could be. So that's more likely to happen. So if you've got like an emotionally unstable personality disorder, or if you meet someone with emotionally unstable personality disorder, what will happen is you'll get a push me, pull me. So what you'll get from the person is, fuck off, I'm not going to let you in, but don't leave me. But then you'll also get, stay really close, but not that close. So you're like, oh, I don't quite know which way to go. And that's very much based on a traumatic pattern over the years. So those people could be quite likely, if they become quite dependent on people, to feel some form of insecure attachment and have an issue around separation anxiety, to be separated from somebody. Children, if I was going to a nursery right now and I was with you all and I said, here you go, take my baby, how many of you, let's say my child was 8 months old, 6 months old, and you're the nursery nurse, and I go, here you go, take the baby. And the baby, do you want the baby that screams and cries, or do you want the baby that's quiet and just waves goodbye to mummy? Which baby do you want? Or it's 12 months old, or it's 15 months old. Which baby do you want? Which baby do you think is better? Better. Which one would you go for, and why would you go for that baby? Do you know? Do you know what feels right to you? Do you know what's okay? The quiet baby, the baby that doesn't cry, which is the natural thing that people say, isn't it? However, the baby that cries is more likely to be the one with a more secure attachment pattern. The baby who is quiet has learned to behave and has learned to please you already. A baby that's pulled away from its mum is going to cry for a bit and want to stay. That's a natural reaction. Where's mummy going? Are they coming back? Will I be okay? And that's also what happens in separation anxiety. When are they coming back? What does it mean? What's going to happen? And in separation anxiety, we can have all sorts of physical sorts of things that will come up. We're likely to get a tummy ache. We're likely to get a headache. We can feel nauseous, and we can really feel anxious. We can have panic attacks, and we can have a generalized anxiety. So we don't feel very secure and we're really scared. Couldn't it be the baby has learned to be secure with many people beside their primary provider? Potentially. Yes, if they've been handed around an awful lot, but then you could argue, if it's secure with absolutely everybody, has it formed a brilliant attachment with its main carer? So that, do you think that as well sometimes? Yeah. So like, just bringing her in, bringing her in, getting her to talk. So what you've got to be careful is if your baby goes in a really huge pattern and has a lot of people, the chances is that they don't know how to attach to one person securely. And then Cinder says, Gabor Mate mentions this in his book and studies. He survived the Holocaust and his mother was forced to leave him with a stranger when he was an infant. Could it be in a large family? Yes, potentially. However, still going to go back to the basics. So if you take one of my old clients, if I talk about clients, I have their full express permission and consent to talk about them. Let me cover that again, because some people say, oh, I'm not going to come and see you because you talk about people. No, I don't, not unless they say it's okay. It's called consent. It's really important. So one of my clients was handed, he was born illegitimately in Ireland quite a long time ago, and very, very Catholic part of Ireland. And he was handed to 15 different family carers in his first year of life. And he's the one that has the most insecure attachment pattern I've ever seen. He used to squish baby birds when he found them in birds. If ever he found them, he would just crush them in his hands until they completely went. He didn't turn out to be a psychopath. However, he did have huge psychotic episodes where he had to be in hospital for ages based around all sorts of things that happened to him. I'm not going to go into his history. It was absolutely awful. But being passed around 15 different family members in the course of 12 months in different ways was really unhealthy for him. But you could argue, surely that did him good. They were family, they cared for him, wasn't it good? And of course, it can be in a large family, but if you have a lot of dependency, if you've got, my mum's one of 7, the next door neighbour was one, you know, they have 13. There's a point where how much time can we keep giving to these children, and how much time, oh, sorry, someone's got their mic on again. How much time do we then have to say, oh,
And I can't remember the name of the study, but there's a really interesting study that's
Me
about
too.
children who spend time within hospital environments. So
Yeah.
in theory, they should be receiving good standards of care. They're being looked after by healthcare providers. But children who spend the first sort of early years, 2-3 years of their life in and out of hospital have real difficulty with attachment styles and attachment patterns. And I can't remember the name of the study, but there's a really interesting study about that. That's what you were saying, Amelia. I think that's one of the main areas where there's been lots of research done on this. And I always think it'd be interesting to do studies of those households where they have 19, 20 children within them. And people say, oh, the younger children are bringing up the older children. And they must have a similar sort of style of attachment to primary caregivers as children who spent long periods of time within institutions and hospitals, or even the best, hospitals. We've got some brilliant hospitals in this country, they're still institutions.
And we also know, like from early patterns from many years ago, that actually what we need is our attachment to be good enough. And one of the early studies that was done many, many years ago was to see if children would heal quicker, because children went into hospital without their parents and they weren't healing very quickly. But then, so lots of behaviorologists look at that, and behavioralists. And actually, when they put the parents in, the children healed quicker. And it was thought, oh, these parents must be amazing. They're not. It's actually that the style was good enough. So it can be about the loss of losing each family. It can also be because there isn't something. It's about consistency. It's about reliability. It's about knowing that the person will come back. That's what separation anxiety is really about. Do I feel secure enough in how I am with that person in order to think that they're coming back? So, okay, let's have a look at the sort of things you can do to help ease separation anxiety. Number one is share the fact that you've got it. Say to the person, I do feel anxious. Of course, you've got to have a loving, caring sort of person who's going to be okay with this. Some people go, fucking hell, you're really smothering me, back off. You might get that sort of response. So we do have to think about that. Some people can't handle this. Some people can. So we need to think about the things that will help us with our separation anxiety. It goes back to children again. It could be getting used to it. So Nemoria says, Mum was from a large family where older children cared for younger. Most of my aunts and uncles had a strong bond with the aunt who brought them up, made for interesting family dynamics. My sister's boyfriend, who I went to school with, boyfriend, fucking husband, shut up, Deb, Jesus Christ. Okay, don't even know my own family marriage status is, Jesus. So Mick, my brother-in-law, his mum is the youngest of 14, but she isn't. She is the only child of the eldest child. But when the eldest child had a child, it was utterly unacceptable at those times. So the mum took her on as her baby, and she was only 3 to 4 years younger than the youngest child. And it wasn't until she was an adult that she found out that she wasn't actually their sibling, she was their niece. So lots of things happen like this that we're not aware of, and they certainly used to happen. So if we've got too many people and a child looks after
they came with the Nintendo accessory pack that your mama gave.
Yeah, this one. I found them in there.
Yeah. So this
They fit now.
I think they came with.
Okay, I've done that. So Phil, so your microphone keeps turning on, so and I can hear your kids, and I don't want anyone else to hear your kids. That's not appropriate. I want them to be okay. So I keep turning you off, so hopefully that will work. So when you are brought up in a large group of people and children look after children, it's never a good idea for children to look after children. They can't do it in the right way. Listen, sometimes it's a really fucking bad idea for parents and adults to look after children. The children actually could be better off in some respects. But what we need is consistency. So what sort of things can we do? Let's get back to that. The sort of things we can look at to do, what we've got to start to think of are things along the lines of knowing that the person's always going to come back, realizing that you have the anxiety, sharing that you have the anxiety, and starting to discuss between you the sort of things that you can do. If you have a mental health diagnosis that is something along the lines of EUPD, or something to do with attachment, or something to do with maybe avoidancy, or avoidant, anything like personality disorder wise, that needs to be shared as well. About how you normally handle things and about what's happened in your past, because this person needs to remain consistent. If you disappear for 3 days and don't talk to that person, there is no consistency there. That person will not feel okay. So we have to think about those sorts of things. We have to then also look at discussing, what does it mean? Abandonment issues as well, I'd assume. Well, fear of abandonment. See, if you have an insecure attachment, it doesn't mean that you were necessarily abandoned. It means that you didn't get consistency. The person could have physically been there, but not emotionally been there. The person could have emotionally been there, but not physically been there, because maybe they had to go to work. If you've got a single parent that works 2 or 3 jobs, how do they manage that? And what else do they have to do? So we get that fear, the perceived fear of that, of what's about to happen, rather than did it ever and how did it and what does it mean? Oh, you're going to leave me, you're going. Means you're going, it means you're never coming back. That's the thing about separation anxiety, is it's not that you're going, it's that you're never coming back, or that you won't come back. And often people who have some kind of separation anxiety have a generalized anxiety as well, or an OCD or something along those lines. So again, sharing it, talking about it is really important. One of the next thing I would do is set up systems, set up levels of communication that you know you can manage and start to do regularly. So it could be that you say, I promise you I will say good morning, however, I don't get up till 11. So if that person then gets up at 7 and you get up at 11 and you say, I promise I'll say good morning, you also need to say when. You also need to say, however, you sleep and we need to have a look at that from then till then. And that's what we're going to do. Sorry, my dad's texting at the same time, so I'm just turning him off. So it's really important. There's separation anxiety for you. Since my mum's died, my dad is probably talking to all of us 5 times as much. He definitely wants to be talking to people and have some kind of connection. It's not really separation anxiety. However, it's that sort of thing. It's about communication and communication styles and how we put them together and what we do. So agreeing with somebody how much they're going to communicate with you is really important, but also the when. I'll text you in the morning is not clear enough, because if you get up at 11 and they're up at 7, they've now got 3, 4, 5 hours of fuck, the person doesn't really care about me. You then text at lunchtime because you've just had a shower or something, you've done it afterwards, and then that person really panics. So we have to look at that. Zoe says, this week, my partner has a week off for his wife's birthday and he hasn't spoken to me since Sunday. It's been difficult not hearing from him, and it does worry me what's going to happen next. Because what you're doing is, in your paranoid fantasy, or Brené Brown calls it the story in your head, is predicting a future that you think you know the outcome of, where it's all going to go wrong. Now, Zoe, I am going to pick on you because I think it is. Right? I'm sorry, I know Zoe's situation, and people who've been in this workshop are all going, we all know Zoe's situation, we don't. So like, or they know that this is the opinion that I have. So I have a worry about that for you generally, Zoe, anyway, because I think it could blow up and things could happen. So, but that's a personal situation. That's how I feel. So, but overall, that's what people do. We predict a future, we say what's going to happen, and we play it over in our heads, and we make ourselves feel like shit. And that's part of the problem that we have as well. So we've got to be really careful about that. Really careful about that. So Mel C says, I hate leaving my older children so that I can go to work in the hope that they look after each other. I really understand that as well, because sometimes we are forcefully separated so we can just put fucking food on their plates or in their mouths or put a roof over their heads. So it's really difficult sometimes to be able to say, this is what I'm doing. However, again, it's about the setup. This is my text number. You can phone me anytime. These are other people that you can phone. This is 999. This is 111. This is whatever number it is in your country. These are different people that you can phone, get in touch with should A, B, C or anything else happen. So again, for separation anxiety and BDSM or anyone else, it's about communication. It's also about, please, thinking about, I said this before when we were talking, if you remember at the beginning of lockdown, if any of you were around then, do something, send something with your smell on, leave something with your smell on, sleep in a t-shirt, please make sure you haven't got really bad BO, right? Have a wash before you go to bed, sleep in a t-shirt, have a nice sleepy smell. There are not so nice sleepy smells and there are nice sleepy smells. Can I really just state that? Give them something with your smell on. So have something of somebody else's, keep a shirt, keep something. I'm not saying it's going to make a difference fully, but it will help ease the separation, the anxiety. Keep messaging them, saying that you're thinking about them. If it's too much responsibility, then don't see somebody with separation anxiety. But if you've got separation anxiety, this is what you can ask for. However, people don't always have to do it. It could be that you set things up. If you're going to go away for 3 or 4 weeks, that you set up 3 or 4 letters that you've already written that you send off. It could be that you spread it with your perfume, your aftershave, something about you. It could be that you've sat on it for 3 hours and fasted on it. I don't really care. It could be that you've worn it down your knickers and it's smelling, dripping of you. Can I just say, please think about the general post office staff in these scenarios. Bag it in plastic before and send it off. You know, think about these things. It could be that you leave them your shower wash. It could be that you leave them deodorant. It could be that you send stuff smelling of this sort of stuff. Smell is very important, but so is physicality. It could be that the person gets like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, because that's what they're called. Don't shoot me. They are gender-based cushions and different things that we can huggle and snuggle. It could be that you buy them a teddy bear from somewhere like the Teddy Bear Factory. You put your voice on it saying, thinking of you, love you. For fuck's sake, if you break up though, that's not necessarily a good thing, because someone's going to play that fucking thing to death, and if that's not necessarily healthy, so watch that as well. Be a little bit careful. So you just got to be, so lots of things you can do with your smell, your voice notes, different things. It could be that you ask the person who has separation anxiety, that you ask them to fill in a diary, that you ask them to do something online, that you give them quite a few different things to do that they have to report back to you, so people feel quite good about that. Little Baby Switch says, is this weird? Well, there's a question. I haven't read it yet. When I was with an ex of mine, if she didn't text me back, I'd keep texting her in fear that something had happened to her, when in reality she was just busy. That's not weird, and it isn't healthy either. It's not good for us to do that, because every time we feed that anxiety, the anxiety grows. Like, anxiety comes in a wave, and it's pretty overwhelming. It starts off quite flat. It builds, it builds, it builds, it builds. We're like, fuck, I can't do it. Fuck, shit, piss, come, bullets, fuck. Oh, actually, no, I feel a bit better now. I think I can. But the problem is, when you get to the fuck, shit, cunt, piss, bollocks bit, what most of us do is cut it off an activity. I've texted, I feel so much better. I've texted again, I feel so much better. And then you start saying, oh, fuck, I've texted 12 times. I don't feel better because I think I've bothered them now. Is it a bother? Fuck, what do I do about that? And then we need to keep feeding this sort of stuff. What we need to learn to do is ride the fucking emotional wave. And that's not easy to do. That's really, really hard. And that last bit is definitely the worst bit. I liken that to transition in birth. That point where you're about to push and you are already, no, fist me, put your hand up inside me. That fucking little thing is not coming out. I don't want it. Shove your hand in. I don't care. I've changed my mind. Or you bite the obstetrician or the nurse or the midwife or whatever, you know, and you get very, I can't do it. I can't do it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, fuck me, I can. There's a baby just come out. If only it was that easy. It's never that easy. But that's the principle. But that transition part is really hard. And on average, for most people, it lasts for around 20 minutes. When we give birth to a feeling, it takes around 20 minutes of how strong it is and how emotionally based we are on it. So lots of people with anxiety over text. I haven't even looked down to see what people have answered. It really is complex. We do over text, we over ask. For me, if you're going to start over texting, sit on your fucking phone, turn it off, do something else, because actually what you will do is now get in the way of the relationship to yourself. Jesus, I was on the loo, I had chronic diarrhea, and I've come out to 48 texts. Makes the other person feel like it's too much. So we need to do something else. So distraction is a really good idea, but we'll come into that in a minute. So Mark says, if I understand correctly, the subconscious can't properly tell the difference between imagination and reality. Yes, you're absolutely correct. Which is why, if you're a fucking parent and you buy your child an under 18 game, and they are an over 18 game and they are 12 years old, and you wonder why they're quite hyper or look like they've got symptoms of maybe ADHD or something along those lines, or that they're in fight, flight, freeze quite a lot of the time, that is why. Because when someone pops up on, like, what is it? COD or whatever it's called, like, you know, or all those war games where people pop up, that thing that your kid does is fucking real to their body. They cannot tell the difference. So they get the same shock reaction. So don't buy your kid those games. It probably isn't a good idea. You're turning on their fight, flight, freeze. So if we imagine something really awful, we predict it's going to happen. We have to learn to predict and do the precursors and say, just before that, I know this is going to happen, so I need to look at this. I'm going to come on to pre-mortem in a minute as well. So an imagined abandonment, Mark says, is perceived as an actual abandonment event. It's perceived as a potential actual abandonment event. Because when we've been abandoned a lot, I've met so many liars recently on online dating, so many people, oh my God, like so many, and people say, oh, you're damaged. I'm not damaged. I'm pretty fucking tired of it, and it's pissing me off and it annoys me. So I'm a little bit more conscious of that. So I might be a little bit more hesitant with somebody. Yes, of course, it has an impact. And the subconscious learns from that imagined event. Our conscious and our subconscious learns from all the events that we've got going in our heads. Cara said, at the start of lockdown, I sent my people a knitted hug that I made. And people said they loved it, that it smelled of me. Exactly, that it's really a good idea. That's when you turn the thing into a pitfall, self-sabotage. Yeah, how do we learn to ride the wave? Again, so this is like comfort. Where do we get comfort? If I have everybody, we're going to do a little exercise. You don't have to join in. You don't have to, but it's up to you, right? So you can join in if you want to. Everyone put your hands out like that for a minute, right? Put your hands out. I'm going to give you a screaming baby. You may not drop it. You cannot give it back. It is yours. Take the screaming baby from me and bring it back to you and tell me where you put its head. Right? Glad I didn't put my hands out. So just fuck that. Right. Averagely, statistically, cis-born women will put the baby on their left. On average. Cis-born men are more likely to put the baby in the middle or on their right. And some cis-born men will also put the baby on the left, and some cis-born women will put the baby on their right. Why do you think we go to the left? Middleish left. Love, elbow, nearer the heart. And it's the heartbeat. So what Ella's just said is the heartbeat. So when a baby is inside you, it makes me laugh. Like, do you know what? This is quite funny. When you give birth to a baby, you put it in a dark room and say, it needs absolute quiet. Shh, don't say a word. It's been living in your guts. You have farted, your digestive system is going, light comes on, you strain for a shit, you vomit sometimes. That child has had a cacophony of sound and a cacophony of skin is pretty thin by the time you get in there, of light and dark, and it's just fucking fine. But no, we're going to put it in pitch black and say, it's all right. Interesting. So we tend to put the baby on the left. Right, so this baby is still screaming its fucking guts up. It's been checked for whether its nappy is soiled, it's been checked as to whether it's hungry, it's checked for wind. Now what do we do? It's crying. All those things have been satiated. Now what do we do? What would you do?
Oh, gosh.
You would rock. You would rock. So yes, and okay, sing. So this vegan vixen will sing. Or shh and rock. We do lots of things. When you look at people who are very severely mentally ill, they will rock. They rock themselves, don't they? They do this. Or we might get skin to skin. I don't know why I just showed my skin, but let's go for that anyway. So we might go for skin to skin, or we'll move, or we'll hum. Baby, baby. I used to sing for a living, and my kids, I always sung Hushabye Mountain to my kids when they were born. So I knew that I'd created a rod for my own back. So I recorded Hushabye Mountain, so whoever was looking after my child could just play it for them, and it always just soothed them to sleep. It was quite easy. It is stimming. It is a form of stimming for sure, but we then say stimming is a bad thing. Actually, stimming is really normal for babies in that own way. We're making sure that the baby can cope and handle it. But actually, I'll tell you what the real fucking problem is. You're making sure you can handle it. That's the sort of thing that we do. That's the sort of thing that we do. So stimming is creating a habit, a repetitive habit in some way, shape or form that helps us cope with an overlying emotion or anything else as well that we do. And you'll see it in people on the spectrum, children with ADHD, people with anxiety, children with anxiety, and many other mental health issues as well. And some of us learn to overstimulate and do different things. And nail biting can even be seen potentially as stimming. It's a habit that we create. I used to blink really badly as a kid. Really badly. I'd blink. It made me feel better. I was trying to reset in some way, shape or form. But isn't it how we learn? I think you meant there, Taz. It is how we learn. It is what we do. But now we've got all these things. People are saying, I'm going to buy this thing that's going to rock my baby to sleep. What are you going to do when it breaks down? Oh, what do you like? You know, when I had my first child, I rocked my baby and I'd crawl backwards out my hands and knees. I didn't do it the second, third and fourth. I fucking learned very quickly not to do those things. So it's really hard. So what we've got to do is really difficult. So what somebody's just written in a private message was that I've been ghosted by my own parent. I find it really hard to manage my emotions when I don't hear from my partner, especially when there are tensions like a disagreement has happened. So set yourself up an agreement with this person and say, this is what I'd like it to look like. This is why I suffer from it. These are the things I need from you. I really struggle with this, but you also have to learn how to handle your own emotions. This is going to sound really harsh on everybody. You are the only person that has to live with your emotions. You have to learn how to deal with them. If we rely on other people to make it okay for us, and that person doesn't, then we can never be okay. I mean, you know, we're going to talk about dialectical behavioral therapy in a minute. That's the whole principle of it. That's the point of it. How do I learn to handle this and use techniques that will help me in a way that makes me feel okay? So again, for me, it comes in, I've spoken before about, and you could see this actually, write your own manual, your own Haynes manual on yourself that says, this is the way I like to be handled. This is what I like. And the other person writes one as well. And you how do I help someone who is like that? What do you mean, Taz? Can you explain that a little bit more? You ask them, what do they need? What do they want? What would it look like? And then you look at what you can offer and you probably fulfill that with a certain amount. When somebody comes to me and says, my God, Deb, I hope you never leave me because I really, really need you. That's not a good place for us to be in as a therapist and as a person. Okay, so if somebody doesn't take responsibility for themselves, don't take it for them. If somebody doesn't, we can turn around and say very clearly, it's a really hard thing to say, is that is down to you. Accountability really, really matters. That's hard. Right, so, and then other people have said, how do I help? So I was like, I've read that one already. Smith says, being a hermit, living halfway up a mountain, then no one has to deal with me. And you don't have to deal with people. It does go both ways a little bit, remember. They don't take responsibility for themselves. Yeah, that is the problem. Manual of Me is a good Google search term. I've never looked for that. That's interesting. I've advocated this for years. Think about the way you like to be treated. Think about the things you want. Start with a goal of it. So this, and find different situations. When I'm upset, when I'm sad, when I'm angry, when I'm frustrated, this is what I would like. When I'm scared, this is what I would like. As a sub, I would like this. As a dom, I would like this. This would work for me. This wouldn't. Don't do this and don't do that. So somebody else has asked as well. Okay, so somebody said, does that contradict with what we were talking about earlier when we were agreeing with the time to say good morning? If that person is late to message, we have to manage that anxiety rather than expect the other person to do something. So as if I misunderstood, we have to deal with that. We can ask someone to do something, we can put something in place, and that person might not do it. And if they don't, we have to learn how to ride that wave. And that's difficult. And then someone else has said, I'm sorry to message, I'm on call for work, I'm missing some of the talk. Will it be available as a podcast? Eventually, when I get that done. But if you ask Nemoria, he is actually recording it and he will send you the recording. So there are ways, but we eventually have to learn how to ride that wave by ourselves. That's the best thing. And lockdown has really shown that to me. I don't know if you've seen that as well. But if you rely on sexual contact, if you rely on play, if you rely on different things, over time, and you're always relying on a person or a thing that you can't get to, what do you do when you can't get to it anymore? We have to learn ways to help ourselves, which means we are accountable. Brené Brown talks about leaning into the discomfort in her books. I'm all for diving in, never mind about leaning, but yes, eventually. It is about, how do I handle this? And it's about just bringing yourself in slowly but surely. On that note, actually, let's have a look at some techniques. So I've for a change, actually, Poppy can see, I'm actually just talk off the top of my head. I have, however, brought up some stuff about some DBT skills to remind me, because there's no way I can remember the hundreds of them that there are. So I've brought some up so we can have a look at a few. So let's look at some skills, how you can help yourselves for anything. If you have as well, please, if you have separation anxiety and it is diagnosed, or if you have a serious mental health diagnosis and you have separation anxiety as part of that, what I am going to say is be accountable, go and get help. Go and find people that can help you with how you're going to cope with these things, because we need to learn skills, but skills will only get you so far if you do not look at what's going on underneath. So this is what's happening for us. You then come along with this, especially when you come into therapy, and you bring this into therapy and we say, let's cure this. Here we go, let's go. You've still fucking got this. If you don't deal with this, then another thing will grow up from it. This sounds like a bad joke. What's one of these upside down? But that's the problem, isn't it? We can do, like, if you've got anorexia and you come into my therapy room and you go, I've got anorexia, and we fix the anorexia, it's not enough. This needs fixing. And this is an ow of some kind. This is a hurt of something in the past or anything else as well. And somebody says, if you don't heal your previous trauma, your next relationship will suffer from then on. I read once, and I've probably said that more than once as well. That's so true. And that came in a direct message. You are responsible. Unfortunately, you're not responsible for the hand of cards you're dealt, but you're very responsible for how you play them, what they look like, and what they mean. And it's so boring. I say that all the time. I have a lot of clients who come into me and say, hey, you know, the world's a shitty place. It's really horrible. It picks on me all the time. And there's nothing I can do about it. I'm utterly powerless. And I don't think it's fair. Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that, because the world isn't fair. That's true, but it isn't picking on you. It doesn't give a flying fuck about you. That's the problem. It doesn't care. So then we have to learn how to handle how we feel. We have to learn how to manage our emotions and sort them out. And if somebody isn't willing to do it, like Taz, what you mentioned, some people aren't willing to do that yet. And very rarely do those people come into therapy. They come into therapy a little bit later. And life isn't fair, is it? Yeah, my mum says things like that. I never told you life was going to be fair. The amount of dominance I've said, I didn't tell you I was going to be fair. That happens quite a lot. Kirsten says, I know I'm emotionally reactionary. I've explained to my partner that when I'm triggered, but I often want time to figure out what has upset me. Yes, take a time out and sit with it and work out, oh, fuck, I can't breathe. It's like a panic attack swelling up. What's the worst thing that's going to happen with a panic attack? It ends. That's it. That's the truth, isn't it? At the end of the day, no matter how bad that panic attack is, even if you end up in hospital, you end up back at home. It's not going to kill you. The worst thing that can happen is that it happened. But we have to learn how to get through them. And there are so many techniques and different things that we can use, especially around panic attacks. Let's talk a little bit about DBT. As I say, I've got 2 windows up. I think I did in the end.
And I think the other thing that I wanted to say, I'm going to sneak in Miles like before we go into DBT. No, look at me. But I think one of the things in this question as well that stood out to me is the uniqueness. It says the uniqueness around power exchange and separation anxiety. And there is no uniqueness. There really, really isn't. But I think what there is the relationship dynamics that can create dependency. And if you are consensually entering into a relationship dynamic that has the potential to create dependency, then what are you doing about that? What conversations are you having? And that is a two-way street. You know, there has to be some sort of, you know, we're going to go on to techniques. I'm sure one of them might be called ahead, but we're going to look at, okay, how are we going to...
She's going to do that one. She said it.
But how are we going to manage the dependency that is potentially created within a relationship? What are we going to do about that? And I think that's really, really important. But I don't think there's anything unique about power exchange dynamics. I think what they have a propensity to do, though, is to exacerbate these in people who have symptoms already, and also can create a dependency. And we have to be really honest with one another. If we are going to go into a consensual relationship that creates dependency, what are we going to do about that? Have we got an exit plan? What does an exit plan look like? What happens if that person gets hit by a bus and goes away tomorrow? Have we thought those things through? Have we had those conversations? Do we have a plan? Because that's really, really important stuff.
And please, in your manual, have how to switch me off. Have the end of it in there. It's really important. If you create a situation where somebody's dependent on you to orgasm, to brush their hair, to brush their teeth, to sort their life out, fucking have a strategy on how to reduce that to make that person okay. Look, that person will recover, right? They'll be fine. There is no such thing as ultimate brainwashing or therapy to get out of brainwashing. We get coerced and we start to go into things like extreme sex and all sorts of different things. Sects, not sex, you bunch of perverts. Sects, right? With a C. Right, so of course we can get pulled into those things if we don't feel emotionally stable or okay. Little baby switch, I want to know who's on the phone now. Who are you chatting to? Right, so we can get pulled along into things sometimes. And when the person comes up, they say, oh my God, they need some kind of rehabilitation therapy to make them okay again. Actually, they'll be fine. It'll take 6 months, it'll take a year, but they will be fine. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because when you know what you're like, sometimes exposure is a really good idea. Emotionally reactionary, you said, Kirsten, exposure, I think Zoe just rolled her eyes at me. It's a really good idea. It's a really tough thing to do, but it's a really good thing to do. Right, I am going to say, if you are into the idea of dialectical behavioural therapy, there are 2 sets of cards, I'm so boring about this, that I suggest you get. right? If you want some help on things to do. Each one of these has over 100 ideas to do. I also suggest that you get the app called Calm Harm. It's a newish app, it's out. It's really meant to stop self-harm. I'm going to argue that self-harm and self-injury are slightly different things. This is really about self-injury, this app, Calm Harm. It turns around and says to you, oh, if you feel like you're going to hurt yourself, do you want a 5-minute or a 15-minute strategy right now? And what sort of thing would you like? And you pick from this lovely little family of characters that are on it that says, do you want something that's going to distract you? Do you want something that's going to help you with your emotions? It gives you all these different choices that you can do. It's a really simple app to use, and you just press which one you want, and it comes up with this list of things that you can do, which are all written from a dialectical behavioral therapy perspective. Well, the link is Amazon. So what you're looking for is the DBT deck. I don't have a link at the moment for clients and therapists. This is mindful practice. That's the DBT deck. And then the other one you look for is the DBT skills building. Oh, look at this, Karis is already there. Oh, look, and Memoria, you fucking awesome humans. And this is the skills building deck as well. So they're slightly different. So what you'll get in these packs is, at the beginning of them, you'll get a set of, so you've got different colors. They're color coordinated in different ways. I'm sure, who has one of these packs? Does anybody? I do. So a few people do. Okay. People have seen me often have these packs. So what they've got is a welcome, how to use the cards, and a structure on how to use them and what to do and what you're going to do every day. Then it talks to you about what are dialectics and what do they mean. That's all about how do we handle conflict and what's the opposition there. Then it goes into mindfulness, where you've got mindfulness practices and different things that you can do and ideas that you can do. Then it goes into emotional regulation, which if you think about that, that's what you're all asking for, really, in some ways. So we might have a look at that one in a minute. Then we also go into distress tolerance. How do you tolerate distress, what you've got to do, and the ideas that it has, which we can go through some of these. I mean, they're what I talk about most weeks anyway. Then the other ones are about interpersonal effectiveness. I'm not going to go into those because we're talking about how to handle emotions in a moment, right? So if you think, I'm going to take this from a site as well to look at it. And then this one is just got more building skills in it as well. Dialectical behavioral therapy is worked out by a woman called Marsha Lynham, who had her own troubles in her life. She was extremely suicidal when she was younger. She had a really hard time with it. And what she found was that most therapists didn't have like a format or a structure or help on what to do and how to do it. So she invented dialectical behavioral therapy. There is a difference between CBT and DBT in their approach. CBT happens to be very trendy. Do I think any one therapeutic process is better than another? I think they all say the same thing in a slightly different way. It's like saying, oh, I cook soup this way. What's in your minestrone? This, this, and this. Oh, mine isn't. I've got this as a base. Oh, have you? There's not really that much difference. You might prefer the flavour of one, but we all say, oh, no, this is so much better. And there's always the latest, trendiest thing for you to be doing to help you. Half of it's bollocks. You know, like it really is. It's very much more about the relationship you have with somebody. That's what it's about. And you need to get to this in the relationship with somebody. These skills that we're going to talk about are just this. They just help with this on top, unless you can really work out what's going on underneath. Dialectical behavioral therapy, for me, what it looks at is, I always talk about widening the path. When somebody comes into therapy or they can't handle things, they're on a tightrope. There's nowhere for them to go. And a lot of people end up doing that whole thing, if I need to use my brain, my logic, and other people going to, no, I need to use my emotions. And the truth is, your path needs to widen to incorporate both of those. That's what we actually need to do. We need to be able to look at both of those and use them in a different way. How do we do that? We've got to understand our emotions. We've got to understand what they mean, where they come from, and what feelings they create. We've got to understand that logic can help with that sometimes, that there's time for logic, there's time for emotions, and there's always time for both. We've also got to be aware of, how do I tolerate distress in a moment and what helps me? How do I feel about that? And how do I emotionally regulate myself in that moment? So let's have a look at a few. So I've written these down in a link because I haven't written them down. I've just picked up a link because I can't remember them all the time. When I'm with someone, I might remember some and I use some, but I'll always send them a few links because I'm sorry, there's no way you can remember everything because it's all a bit too much. It's just awful. Too much for us to remember. Don't you find that?
Yep.
You have to just look it up sometimes.
Favorites, don't you?
Yeah, you do, for sure. And then you've got to watch that. So there are 4 different categories that DBT is about interpersonal affective skills, distress tolerance skills, which I've said, emotional regulation skills, and mindfulness skills. The first one I want to start with, really sorry, is distress tolerance. So let's start with that. So what we've got here is we've got the acronym of ACCEPTS, ACCEPTS, your accepting skills. Your A stands for activities. So what activities could you do right now to help take your mind off it? What could you do slightly differently? What's happening in your mind at this moment? And Calm Harm, what it does is it gives you an option. Hey, you could go and do this. You could do that. You could write this on yourself instead. You can go and write a journal. You have an option to do something else. What activities could you do that would help you, even if it's down to your breathing or anything else as well? UPA. I haven't heard of UPA. Have you heard of UPA?
Nope.
No, there you go. I haven't heard of UPA, so I don't know. Is that an English one or an American one or Australian? Might be different. Breathe, journal, meditate, exercise, garden. There you go. We also know actually that if you put your hands in dirt, it is well known, well, you might not know this, that there is a bacteria in dirt that actually makes you feel a little bit better. Not if your cat has shat all over your garden. That's a completely different bacteria that you don't want, especially if you're pregnant. So please be very careful and don't take literal advice from me if you are pregnant. If you are not pregnant, however, put your hands in dirt. ACT is covered quite well in this book. That's happiness trap-based, revolutionary mindfulness-based. Jesus, that's a really long title. Is that Happiness Trap? The Happiness Trap, is that what that book is? Yes. Yeah, and I've read that book. It's a pretty good book. There are loads of them. I even like Marsha Lynam's biography. I think that tells you so much, and it tells you about her journey and then what she did afterwards as well. And I've got one upstairs and I've got the pages turned over. Actually, I just lent it to someone. I've got the pages turned over for about, I don't know, 200 of the pages because it's got so much in it. Russ Harris, the Happiness Trap, just seen how long the link is. Yeah, I thought it was when I eventually got to it because it said Happiness Trap base. I was like, okay. So activities, the sort of things that we can do. Have a little list. When I was breastfeeding my children, what I found was I was literally pregnant with the next one. I just became a baby making machine. I had 4 children in under 6 years, roughly 7 years. I had a lot of babies. And I used to do myself, and what we need as well is like a crisis box. And a crisis box, if it's got some activities in it, can be really helpful. It can make a real difference. I think the thing about happiness as well is that one of my clients said to me earlier, I just want to be happy. And I said, I don't know what the fuck that means anymore. What does that mean? I want to be happy. Happy according to whose system, according to whose ideas, and the stress and the pressure, because at the moment what happiness looks like to all of us is to be in a perfect relationship, have shit tons of money, have a fantastic house, have an amazing car, be totally satisfied at your job, have a pair of tits that are perkier than fucking God knows what, they're up to your chin, or a cock that's 10 inches long, or a fucking set of abs. How happy do you want to be? Oh, like, what is happiness? And I think you need to define what success and happiness means to you and stop looking around, look inwards. I'd rather be content than happy, and I am. I very much go for content. I'm happy with that one as well. Irony. I found that having a literal written list or box does make a massive difference. When you're in a mood, it's so difficult to think. Exactly. I agree with you, Domina. That's why I said have yourself a little crisis box. It can be quite a big one. It can be quite a small one. Put things in it that you can do. We know, for example, that people can do things like puzzles. People can do things like some colouring in, and different things can really, really help you. And I've just been told that UPA is American, similar approach to giving you options of how you want to deal with it. So I wonder if all these things are available in different countries, and it even allows you to take tests to track progress. I have a real issue with taking tests to track progress. As a private therapist, I do not work for the NHS. I do not have to test you every week to make sure you're doing better. Your journey is not better, worse, better. Is it fuckers like? It is a complex, difficult mess, and it's an absolute shitty thing. If it's not available in the US, it might be available under a different format. If not, let me know and we'll see if we can find it somewhere. So I think you have to be very careful with that. Yeah, self-care cupboard, self-care box, whatever you want to do. What activities can you do to help yourself right now? So the accepts. Contributing. What's contributing to this is one part of that. And the other thing is, how are you contributing to others? What words are you using? What else could you do? So when we contribute to other people, when we do something nice, we actually feel better. We actually like it. I've just got it off Google Apps on UK. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So it's really important to contribute to other people's situations. If you have been meaning to do a favor for a friend and you start to feel really down, get up and do that fucking favor for a friend. I made Poppy a mirror for her birthday, and no matter how down I made it, I didn't make it, I decorated a mirror, right? But you look them up and they're like 700 quid. They don't have to be 700 quid. Like, it's a decorated mirror with acrylics and stuff, the things that you can do. And it's really good to do something like that. Oh, I must do that. I'm looking forward to doing that. Oh, I don't fancy it. I'm too tired. I'm too stressed. I can't do it. Start doing something, and do something a little bit that you can do. If you read a lot of self-help books, please be careful about self-help books, because you read them with your filters in mind, and it's not always the best thing. Just think about that one. Oh yeah, Ike's grown. Books, mini games, scented candles, brilliant. So things that you can hear, music that you like, paintings that you can do, things that you can make, a fucking cookie dough stuff. Start making something, start baking, whatever it is. That's the difference that it makes. And it could be photographs of people that you love. Don't put photographs of people you don't like. That's not so easy. Oh, Namori's put it in there already. Look at that. Fuck me, it's like I'm a really amazing PA. Thank you, Namoria. So we need to do things. What's contributing to this, but also what contributions can you give to other people? What can you do to help yourself while you're doing this? Comparisons. Look, when you were little, actually, you're all really young. What the fuck am I talking about? I don't know if your parents ever said to you, and I can't bear this, but let's go for it. Think of all the starving children in Africa. Did anyone get that? Eat your dinner, eat all of it. Anyone get that quite a lot? Yeah, I did. Or people have got it worse off than you. You should be fucking grateful for what you've got, you little cunt. My parents never spoke to me like that, but they would have said, you should be grateful for what you've got, those sort of things. I got that today. Oh, I'm really sorry, quiet. Don't ever eat everything that's on your plate if you don't want to. That's what causes obesity and all sorts of eating disorders, right? It's not worth it. However, what we don't do enough nowadays is look at people who are worse off than us. The author is Lane Pedersen. It probably is. I haven't even looked. It is Lane Pedersen. Thanks. I couldn't remember who it was. So it's really important to also realise that a lot of people aren't as good. Some people are better off, but also some people are worse off. That sounds really hard, but when you compare, you always make yourself worse off than anybody. So when you do that comparison, you're so busy making yourself further down the line and that you're not okay, then that causes a serious issue. We also have to realize part sometimes of being in therapy or being in group therapy is realizing that lots of people feel like this, and there's a normalization to it. And it's good to compare instead of just comparing to, I want to be Kim Kardashian. I mean, if you do, let's talk professionally because you seriously need to see me. But let's say you do want to be Kim Kardashian or somebody like that. I want to be someone famous. I want to be somebody else because they've got something that you haven't got. It's money, looks, whatever. Like, it's very unrealistic. Half those things are filters. Half those things bring all sorts of situations as well. It's not healthy to compare and put yourself down. It is healthy to compare and say, fuck, I'm really lucky in life. It's really good. It makes a difference. Mel C, I have a positive start to the day at work, that it just gets worse, I think you mean. And I end up feeling like crap physically and mentally. Look at what's draining your energy. So have a look at what's going on. It makes a real difference. So those comparisons are there for you as well. Look at what emotions are underneath. That's what the E stands for, and accept. What's going on for you? What's draining you? What are you saying yes too much? Are you doing things? Actually, Sonia has stated that research shows that practicing gratitude contributes to your happiness in her book. Can I say, although Sonia said that, we've been saying it for the last 20 to 40 years. We all know it does. It changes the brain when you are grateful. If you want to do 2 gratefulness exercises that are very simple, I'm going offline from DBT of skills, but let's just learn these skills anyway. When you wake up in the morning, look around the room and name 5 things that you are grateful for. I check my phone every morning. If I have no messages from my family and they're all safe, I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for the fact that I sleep alone because my window's fucking absolutely open and I love the fresh air coming in. I love the fact that I've got a really comfortable bed. I'm really grateful for having a comfortable bed. Name 5 things that you're grateful for. At the end of the day, as you go to bed, name 5 things that you're grateful for that you had an impact on or did something to do with today. So by that I mean today, for example, it was quite a nice day in the middle of the day. It was a bit colder in the evening. If you say, I'm so grateful it was sunny today, that had fuck all to do with you. If you believe in God, it was God. If you believe in Mother Nature, it's Mother Nature. If you believe that shit just happens, shit just happened. It was nothing to do with you. How did you make the most of the sun? I went out, I went for a walk down to the beach, I got myself some fish and chips, and I had a really great time. That's the way to start thinking about it and doing it. 5 things that you're grateful for that you made the most of, that you had a hand in. Because what's that? When you positively reinforce that, you start to feel a lot better. It makes a difference. Emotions come in various sizes in different ways. Happy, angry, sad, scared. There's also contempt and disgust. You know, there's a few others, but let's just deal with the basics, the very core basics. Happy, angry, sad, scared. Sometimes we don't know. What was the name of DVD decks in the UK App Store? Not sure which ones. About 30 people will answer that. Is there one for pissed off? Now let's look at that. Which one could it be? What we've got to look at is when we're feeling an emotion, is what feeling do we then show? Sometimes an emotion always starts with some kind of an ow. Oh, that hurt. How am I going to react to that? The amount of arrows that have hit us, we get used to it. If last time your back went and you end up in bed for 3 days because your back went, when your back goes again, you don't just think, fuck, I've got a bad back. You go, fuck, I've got a bad back and I'm going to end up in bed for 3 days. Then I'm not going to get this and I'm not going to get that. All the arrows keep adding to what we're doing and we don't feel very well. And we don't feel very good about those sorts of things. So we start to predict our future. It's about being present. It's about, this is the emotion that I'm feeling. I wonder where that comes from. And if you think about DBT, that curiosity is widening your mind into the logical and slightly the emotional, what's going on for here. So pissed off could be that you're sad. It could be that you're angry and it could be that you're scared. You tell me, work it down to the bullseye. Which one is it? Because often we'll cover a feeling with another feeling. Oh gosh, I'm so stupid. Really? Are you? Or is that a racket? Something you've put on the top? If you want to look up something in transactional analysis, look up racket feelings. Really great, because we use feelings that are acceptable to others. I'm bored. Are you? Or is there another feeling going on, another thing going on underneath? Person says, I used to say, fuck my life out loud when annoyed. I don't do it anymore. I sing tra-la-la. It's lightened my mood considerably. Of course it has. The words we use go in. Understand your emotions. The P stands for pushing away. It is okay. I don't like the word push in this one. I prefer the word bracket, but it doesn't work in the acronym accepts. It's very important to bracket your emotions. As a therapist, if I'm talking to you, and I'm sure it's the same for you, that when you talk to people, shit comes up for you. And actually, sometimes I want to say, fuck me, is that all you've got to moan about? Do you want to hear about my life? Fuck off. If you think therapists don't think that, think again, right? Because we do. It's a natural emotion to have. Or someone's going like that and you're going, oh, fucking hell, like, come on. So we do have natural things, but what we have to learn to do is bracket that and wonder where it comes from and look at it later. And it's really important that we do. When you push something away to later or another time, promise your brain that you will come back to it at a set time, doing something else in a different way. I've had a therapist cry with me. I think if your therapist cries with you too much, your therapist needs some therapy. If they're permanent, I used to have a therapist sitting there and sob. And I used to think, do I need to take care of her now? Like, because she's really fucking crying. What do I do? She's sobbing and I'm not. No, that doesn't mean I'm not in touch with my feelings. I can cry too, but I was like, but like, honestly, that's so awful. I'm like, fucking, are you all right, love? Not necessarily fully healthy either. Normal to have feelings. And if I'm going to cry with someone, what I'll say is, fuck, I'm really aware of an emotion that's flooding up in me. I'm aware it's maybe not mine and it is yours. Are you chucking it at me? Why? Zoe, that might be yours as well. You're throwing your emotion at me, so I'm feeling it for you. That'll often happen. And if it's not that, it might be that it stimulated something from my past and my experience. So please look at bracketing your emotions. Look at the thoughts. Your words are so important. When you turn around and you say to yourself, Cinda says that would weird me out too. I chatted to a new therapist this week and her responses to my experiences were way too much for her. Go and see someone else fast. Look, you've got a really good therapist here who's got some space. See people who are good. She's a scene counsellor on, like, find a therapist that's right for you. Go and see them. I have no space at the moment at all. I just really can't accept anyone else. So see people that are good for you. So our thoughts, have a look at the thoughts and the feelings that you're having, okay? But the thoughts matter too, the words we use. If you say things to yourself like, oh, for fuck's sake, you stupid cunt, or whatever, that's not a good thought to have. Why are you doing that? Why are you making this situation worse and feeling worse for yourself? Lola says, I found the awareness of how I'm avoiding my reality at work is helpful, even though I still do that. Not being in denial helps in a small way. I learned this from these workshops and I'm very grateful. Oh, thank you, Lola. That's really sweet of you. I think you have to work out what's going on for you. And if you find that work is overwhelming and too much, ask, what about work is overwhelming and too much? What does this mean? What are my thoughts here? What am I saying to myself? What's the pattern of words that I'm using on a regular basis? And then the last one for accept is sensation. What's going on for you in your body? If you Google it and you look up, someone else is going to do this for me now, thank you very much, Memoria or Karis or whoever, you know, have a look where, so there's a study that was done that you can have a look at that tells you where you feel feelings. It's a maps for emotions in the body. Have a look at where you're feeling busy in your body. What does that mean? And it was done from people in Sweden and Taiwan, and they looked at people from very different countries with very different cultures, and all our responses are the same in the same parts of the body, which is why we even know with micro expressions that people respond in the same way. They do the same thing, no matter where they come from. It was a PNAS type study, I think it was, something like that. So it's the bodily map of emotions. Thank you very much. There we go. Karis, thank you. That's, and actually I printed this up and I print it up for clients often, and I say, sit down and have a listen to what's going on in your body. What's going on here? What does this mean? And have a look. And it's not about warmth, although that bottom one says warm. It's not about warmth. It's about activity. Don't get fooled into thinking it's activity. It's warmth or cold. It's not. It is the strength of activity in a certain area. So if you're feeling shame, your eyes are fucking glowing, like the brightest thing. If you're feeling anger, your jaw will start to get very, very tight. Thank you, Sweet Jerry, and thank you, Cinders. Thank you, everyone. So look at what you're doing. Look at the sensations. Listen to what your body's trying to tell you. Listen, the self-soothing skills that you need, we talked about rocking earlier. It might be that you want to hear some music. It might be that you want to taste something that you really like, or just stop for a second. Drink's a good excuse, isn't it? Plus, it's cold. If you're in a real shock, and you're really not okay and you're having a very distressing moment, go and plunge your hands into ice cold water or plunge your face into very cold water. I said this last week. However, if you have rosacea or other things where ice and contact on your skin isn't a good idea, listen to me, a fucking dermatologist now, don't do that, because you'll have a shocking reaction and you'll really feel it later if you just put ice on your face. But ice cold water, immersed by 2/3, the shock will bring you. So when we are in a shock state and we have an experience from the past, we go into the past. Bring your shock in today by shocking yourself. So freezing cold water, anything like that can really help as well. That makes a difference. Any makeup will come off. Depends what makeup you're wearing. I haven't got any on. Do you know what? If I'm in that bad a state, don't give a shit about my makeup in the moment. You can also plunge your hands. You can also tip some ice down the back of your neck as well. You can also hold your breath till you can't breathe. Don't make yourself pass out. That's not enough impossible. But the good news is if you do pass out, you're only going to fall down and wake up again anyway. Hold your breath. Stimulate the vagus nerve. Get things going. Do you have the link to the feeling map testing? Look up. I'm going to say, little baby switch, look up. Have a look up and you'll find it. There's about 3 or 4 links there. Ruminating becomes an issue with music or journaling rather than quiet moments. How do we pop out of that or stop it? If you are thinking, go into your bodily sensations and start creating other things. Look at, so self-soothing skills can be based on, it's written here, on taste, smell, sight, hearing, or touching something. Take yourself out of it if you're thinking. You've also got the exercise of, I'm going to write that on a post-it note and I promise I will sort that out tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and you come back to it. We can do things like that. There are lots of things that we can do. How can we do that? We have to look at how we are in a moment. What can take us out of it? What options do we have? What can you do? You can only look at yourself at the moment. If you're looking at all these fucking things that worry you, we go into a very different place of being. Start with one small thing. What was the one you wanted to say?
Oh, I was talking about cool for head. We're not really there at the moment, but we're on about I think we're having a conversation, weren't we, about how we use different skills that are derivative of DBT in terms of recommendation BDSM all the time. So we talk about, let's pre-mortem something. And for me, that's very much a pre-mortem as something like a basic DBT corporate head worksheet. I think that's a really good tool. We talk about the user manual, you talk about the user manual a lot, and I talk about life vision worksheet. And I've actually got a DBT life vision worksheet that I do with my clients, and I've added a section to it about BDSM, sex and kink, because that's a huge big part of the work that I quite often do with people. And I think it's about looking at what worksheets that we've got, what skills that we have available within BDSM, and where they derive from. And I think a lot of these come from DBT techniques and skills. But I think corporate head, going back to the first question, anyone who's entering into a relationship that has a DS component to it, a dynamic to it, I always think corporate head's a really sensible thing to do. Or when people come to me and they say, you talk all the time online, you and Debs talk all the time about sort of pre-mortem and scene, talking, communicating. How do I go about doing that? I know I should be doing it, but I don't know what the practicalities of that looks like. How do I do that? And I keep saying I never get around to it, but I probably will soon. I've got a bit more time, and it's really nice. I've stepped away from one of my employment commitments at the moment, so it's lovely. So I'm going to actually start writing more. She's going to do a podcast, and I'm going to write more. Hey,
and she's going to come on with a podcast.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is about these really simple worksheets that we can download from the internet, and they form a template almost of how to have these conversations, how to do
look up psychology tools.
Yeah,
psychology tools will have hundreds and hundreds of links to different things that you can have, and it makes a difference. So that you've got
hurrah, because I'm aware that we talk about these things a lot, and we have, I guess, buzzwords that we use, which is great, but we don't necessarily always talk about the how to do these things. Where's the start of a 10? What can we do? How can we, and sometimes I think we think things are obvious, and then I get an inbox full of questions going, I really want to do that thing you keep recommending that I do, but how do I do that? Where do I start? What does that look like? And I think some DBT worksheets are really, really good examples for that. So if we're talking about pre-mortem, look up corporate head. If we're talking about doing a user manual, look at a life vision worksheet. It'll give you some ideas about how to do that piece of work. So I think I might write a blog about that.
And actually, that's very true. I've also got a shit ton of writings, a massive shit ton of writings that you can look at and start to have a look at, and that can make a difference. The thing is, you've got to start with the basics. One of the things that DBT talks about when we're looking at how to look after ourselves is the whole thing. What you have to look at is, are you sleeping enough? I'm really sorry, but that makes a huge difference. If you're not sleeping well, what will help you? It could be that you need to eat a snack 40 to 30 minutes before you go to bed. People say don't eat, bollocks, eat something. Your circadian rhythms and different things that happen actually do well if you have quite a high protein based snack 30 to 40 minutes before you go to bed. If you have chronic indigestion, reflux and other things, maybe not. So that makes a difference. Thanks, Moira, that's psychology tools. There are a shit ton of things that you can use there. That's what we base everything on, that sort of shit ton of tools. So little things that will help you sleep, that will make a real difference as well. I'm going to go over today time-wise. I'm really sorry, so you might be staying for an extra 15 minutes. If you're waiting for the last one, it is coming, I promise. I apologise. So sleeping is really important. Did you know having slightly wet socks in bed, even though that might not be very good for some things, actually makes you sleep better? Having warmer feet makes you sleep better. So what you want is a cool room rather than a hot room. Often you think, oh no, yeah, 10 p.m. Yes, should we just keep going and watch the people numbers drop off? So how do I? Because they change the temperature of your feet and they make your feet warm up, and trying to help yourself to do that. And so it's really important that we look at what will help us sleep. A dusk to dawn alarm clock might help you sleep well. A light that goes down, a light that comes up in the morning to help you wake up. But warm feet help. So it's blankets over your feet. A lot of people will cuddle a hot water bottle because they don't feel very well. They put it on their tummy. That might be very good. And those sort of things can help. Actually, it's more effective on the top or underneath your feet if you really want to sleep well. So eating. REM sleep is really important for processing stressful emotional memory. It's towards the end of sleep period. So missing a little sleep causes a lot of REM sleep, causes a loss and any more stress. And also, when you sleep for 7 hours, around 7 hours, that REM sleep, it starts off this little glial activity, glials in your head. If you ever watch the film Inside Out, they look like little hoovers going cleaning your head. And that's kind of what they do. They clear out bacteria and stuff. And that's what's really important for us. So sleep really fucking matters. These are a complete cunt around sleep. Oh God, I've got so many messages. Right, so what you need to do is make sure you've got a night shift screen on, you look after yourself. Lola says, I moisturize my feet, but I don't put socks on because for some reason it makes me too hot, makes me wake up even in winter. Yes, so you can be too hot. This is people who can't sleep. Or what you can do is keep your feet out of the bed, put cashmere socks on. That can really help. Cashmere does make a difference. That's why they're very popular over wool and different things. Have your feet out, put the blankets over your middle, or have a lighter sheet. That you can do as well. So sleep is really important. Of course, drugs can help you. If you are taking any form of drug for recreational use or alcohol, you are going to fuck up your availability to be present. I'm sorry, but you are. If you've taken 3 lines of coke at the weekend, you can write off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They're fucking gone completely. It doesn't matter what you say, no, but I really like it and it helps with this. And it fucks up the next 3 days. Your body is trying to recover and do things. Lots of people are getting to psilocybin, microdosing in different ways of saying doing things. But actually, if you look at the really latest bit of research, apart from the people that charge you $5,000 for a day's course on psychotherapy under the use of psilocybin, get 10 people going for that. You've done very well for the day, haven't you? And you have to come back for at least 10 others. Fuck me. However, the most modern research at the moment is saying, actually, it's not fantastic. It's not a good idea. So actually, the use of drugs to try and change things isn't really so great. I once read a book called Why We Sleep, and I've rarely prioritized anything over a good night's sleep. Yeah, it is a great book, and at least 2 or 3 people have put links up. If you are too physically exhausted, you might not be able to. However, there's an irony here. If you're physically exhausted, you also need to get fitter. Even if you have not enough spoons, if you have something that is very debilitating medically in different ways, we actually need to up our activity in order to create stamina, in order to manage. There's an irony here. I know it's not fair. I know it's not a great thing to do, but we need to do it. So we must tie exercise in. Even if it's sitting exercise, you can look up people. Jesus, we used to have people in the 80s. There was this Mr. Motivator. He's done even a full set of exercises. I know where mine's going. Exercises where we can even sit in a chair and do stuff to up our capacity. There's an irony. I have a daughter with hypermobility spectrum disorder. In order for when she's shattered, she needs to do more exercise. There's an irony here. I get it, because she needs to increase her stamina. And then you're caught in that double-edged thing of, yeah, but I can't because I'm too tired. It's the same with anything at the beginning of exercise. It makes a real difference. What you eat really matters too. We know that people who eat really fast food and rubbish food over a long period of time don't feel very well. We need the basics. If you get hooked into really healthy eating, that's also not really good for you either. You need fat. You've got to have fat in your diet. Fat is the shit that runs around all the vitamins and minerals that you take in. Without it, they don't get to the parts that are needed for your body. There are so many qualified nutritionists out there who don't know what they're talking about. There are a lot of PTs out there who say, I know a lot about nutrition. Do you? The amount of people I meet with eating disorders who limit what they eat, who starve themselves, who try to create all these different things, all the trendy things that we're into, you'll say, yeah, but the 5-2 diet really works for me. This works for me. That works for me. It might be changing your body slightly, but what's the price of it later, and at what cost are you going to look at those things? We have to really look at those, our capacity to sleep as well. So please look after yourself. Sleeping, eating, drinking. You need to drink water. All of these things will make a slight difference to your mental health. You can look up all these things, and then you need to go and see somebody. At the end of the day, if you really want some help, go and see somebody. And exercise is really good for that as well. A lot of people, dietitians, I spoke to a couple lately, and they recommended strict diets when I told them I have an eating disorder. Okay, Cinder, this is personal. Can I ask you what sort of eating disorder you have? And you don't have to say, right? You don't have to say at all. I have a lot to say about that. All my life, assisted dominant from a very strong reaction to lack of sleep. It makes me unable to function, so I learned it like that. Sometimes when I am with people or out and time is starting to overrun, it's starting to put my sleep hours at risk. I get anxious and angry because I know how shit it will be. It has a knock-on effect. It does have a difference. Often with an eating disorder, I have bed, which is tied to the abuse mother dearest subjected me to. Okay, so any form of that, this is really ironic, right? If you overeat, if you undereat, no matter what you do when you're abusing food, what you need to do is have a regular eating pattern where you probably eat consistently. When people binge, like a binge eating disorder, actually what they need to do is eat more. So I would put you on at least 2,000 to 2,300 calories a day, depending on all sorts of different things, at least, and we get into a regular eating pattern. Do you want to know the cure to eating patterns? Is to eat regularly. An eating pattern. If you want to know the cure to eating disorders, you need to eat. There's a real irony in this, but you need to eat in a certain way. And reducing your calories is a really, really bad piece of advice. Please don't listen to anyone who says that. I work with eating disorders. It's one of my areas of speciality. I teach other therapists how to work with eating disorders. Please don't ever do that. Oh, for fuck's sake. It really gets me cross. No, don't cut out any food you don't need to. You need to eat more, you need to eat regularly. Of course, if you can start to reduce the amount of highly processed foods and replace them with, with less processed foods, fantastic. But do not deny. If you create denial, you create cravings, you create a longing for something, so don't deny. Another vicious cycle is stress, leading to lots of REM sleep, which consumes a lot of energy. However, the more exercise you do, the more things you do, you can also reduce stress. Change your fucking job if you need to. Apply for a different job. Do something, please. Change relationships. Do whatever you need to do to deal with stress. And they get stressed about their lack of energy or the consequence about the lack of energy. I wrote the other day on FetLife that often when people are in a really bad place, they tend to then go, well, I need a shit ton of self-care. Actually, you probably don't. What you probably need is better organisation, more structure, and a load of different things to come in. A sleep study and a sleep doctor changed my life. Highly recommend it. If you can afford it, have insurance, you need to make a big change, or see a therapist who knows a lot about sleep. I don't know the answer, but it's so sad to see the obesity in BDSM and in the world. Is it sad? I don't have a problem with obesity. In fact, obese people are technically fitter than people who are anorexic and underweight. I'm seriously worried about the amount of people who are underweight in the BDSM world and how fetishized that is and how lovely that's made. I don't have a problem with your shape or size. I don't have a problem with obesity. I don't have a problem with you being massively underweight. I have a problem if you're not taking care of yourself. That's different, and it's very different. And I think we really have to look at that and look at the way we say things. And I'm sorry, Ms. Vegan Vixen, but I feel really strongly about that sort of stuff, because I think that just takes one small group of people and says they're not okay. Really, have a look at anorexia. Believe me, those people are way more likely to die. But we don't talk about that. We talk about obese people and studies. Actually, extremely obese, morbidly obese, yes. Obese, no, absolutely not. It doesn't work that way. So we have to be really careful. Obesity have so many comorbidities in health. I'm not going to carry on that argument with you. This is my area. I'm going to tell you now, if that's the only track you go down, you are not going to be okay with that. We will have a very long, interesting argument, and I will absolutely win. I'm sorry, but we will. I'm a healthcare worker, and people in ICU are always obese or older. Okay, what you find is the people in the morgue are actually anorexic. Take your pick. So your stats are not correct. Yeah, I agree. I'm sorry. So we really have to look at those things. Healthcare worker, I don't, we've got to be careful about what we know. That is one area that you're seeing for different reasons. If you have your hands up, you can type. I'm sorry, people aren't talking. Please type. That's really okay. The BMIs cause so many problems. It convinced childhood I was overweight when I wasn't. It should be scrapped. It's an indicator. It helps. It's nothing else. Kirsten, if you want to write something, please do. Okay, we need to go on to this next subject. I'll happily do a whole fucking one of these on obesity and anorexia, and I'll talk about all of those things. Really, from a professional perspective, if you go and see a therapist who is a generic therapist about obesity or anorexia, you shouldn't be seeing them. They need to be a specialist in this area, and they need to have nutritional qualifications of some kind, and they need to really understand the impact of it. Please do. So many different eating disorders. Mine doesn't even really have a name. It would be a generalized eating disorder. So you'll have a GED. That's what they are. I didn't mean to press the hand up. It doesn't matter, Kirsten. It's really nice that someone else noticed. I heard the BMI was developed as an indicator for whole populations only, but actually is pretty useless for individuals. It's completely not okay. It really doesn't work. It doesn't take into account athletes. It doesn't take into account so many other things, muscles, the weight of muscles and everything else as well. In fact, when you find a bodybuilder, they're all going to have really bad BMIs. They're going to have terrible BMIs. They're all going to look like they're overweight and they've got a serious problem. Statistically, believe me, not everybody who's in ICU is fat. I mean, also, you've also got people who are in ICU who are huge. They're whale-like because they're having a reaction to steroids. You've got all sorts of different medical things going on for different reasons. But as I say, if you want to know the biggest killer of young women, especially under the age of 25, it's anorexia. It's got nothing to do with obesity. It's the opposite, in fact. I think we've got to be very careful when we have a look and just blame one set of people. I find that upsetting, and I'm sure other people do in the room. I'll happily do eating disorders. Right, the last one that we're going to cover is how do you maintain any sense of dominance with someone when you also need to be vulnerable and open up? And how do you balance the dynamic against the need to admit overwhelm, imposter syndrome, and just being human? And adding, how do you get back into the dynamic when you've had a metaphoric fall and don't know how to occupy the same space? The first thing I'm going to say is, I think you're a human before you're into BDSM. That's the first thing I'm going to say. I'm sorry, BDSM doesn't happen by itself. You are a human first and a kink person afterwards. We have to accept that we're human. And in human relationships, rather than living in a fantasy world where we look at all these things where we think people live, we have to take reality into account. I talk about it all the time in sessions with people who are saying, well, it's not like I think it was. Well, what did you think it was going to be? We are the responsibility of those things that used to go around, that used to say, this is what you think I do. This is what I really do. This is what my mum thinks I do, and whatever. And what we look at for people is, you know, this idea of living this fantastic kink lifestyle without the reality of human beings and being vulnerable. If I'm going to be with a dominant, I want him to be vulnerable, her to be vulnerable. I want them to be okay. I want them to be human with me and have their moments. I want them to be real. You have to admit though, see, for me, when someone asks this question, often it's because the person themselves is not okay with being vulnerable. They might see it as a weakness. It's not, it is a strength. Somebody can attack you or have a go at you if they know your vulnerability, if it's secret. When it's out there and you're okay with it, if you came up to me, for example, and said, so actually, let's go out. If I go out into the high street, let's go with obesity. If I go out into the high street and I go away fatty in a really loud voice, I've said this before to all of you, a percentage of thin and fat people will turn around and say, who the fuck is she talking to? She's rude. And a percentage of thin and fat people will say, fuck, she means me. I know she does. The word isn't the issue. It's how we feel about ourselves. It's life's coffee table. We put it down. You pick up the magazine. Why do you? Vulnerability is a strength. It is not a weakness. Admitting you are fallible, admitting that you are not okay is really important. It makes a real difference. If you are overwhelmed and you're not okay, take a time out. Say to somebody, I'm not doing this today. I'm taking a time out. This is what I need to do. What do you need in order to be okay today? Depends how much you manage. Human first, says Lola, not judging by most of my meager messages from random strangers. And Lola says, but of course, anything we do is connected to who we already are. It's not as if we suddenly acquire a whole new persona from thin air. The problem is, if a dynamic has broken down between two people, of course, you can go and see a couples therapist. You can go and get some help. Or you need to sit down and admit where you are, have a conversation and say, what is it you want from me in order to build this back up? You can look at loads of people, Esther Perel, different people online, and you can get a lot of help from this sort of thing. You need to develop trust for yourself. You need to step up. So I'm seeing a couple at the moment who've had this. I see lots of couples who've had this. Dominance can actually be really easy because what somebody says is, fuck, I can't dominate. I can't do these things because I've got too much going on. So again, make your dominance a little better. Who's got a doggy? Oh, Zoe's got a doggy. Who's got my doggy? Do you miss your doggy? Are you okay? Poppy's got separation anxiety from her dog. So we were talking about it earlier. Do you reckon she can hear your voice? I don't know. Bella! Bella! Dog. Bella! Now she's going to have mummy imposter syndrome now. She's going to feel really bad about that, isn't she? Because she already reacted. She went, fuck off, I've got Zoe. Ooh, whoops. So what she will do is buy lots of presents and make sure that
I've already done that.
Sure. Right, so what we have to think about here is, what did we think we were going to be in the first place? What do you think BDSM and dominance looks like long term? What do you think it should look like? Which is why you should write your fucking manual. And you should take the manuals together and have a look at what it looks like. Again, write some bronze, silver, and gold rules about your dominance, about your relationship. What's going to happen here? What is really important in order to keep this alive? Write yourself out 30 texts, 50 different things that make your life easier. You can just send to someone that are dominant or different and can help with the things that you're doing. It's really important to have a look at, why do you think you're an imposter? If somebody gives you the power, it doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter who you are. Somebody is saying to you, dominate me. I want this from you. Believe them. Step it up. Believe in what they're saying rather than what you're doing, what you're feeling, what's going on for you. That makes a real difference. But start with a conversation. It takes a moment to break trust, and it takes fucking months and years to build it back up again. That's the biggest problem that you've got. So what you need to say to the person, if you believe that this person has lost their trust in you, is in some way, shape or form, I understand we're not where we want to be. I want to get us back here again, and this is what we're going to do. And I promise we're going to do this to the best of my ability. You need to have a conversation, but like the attachment theory at the beginning of this, when we speak about, it needs consistency. So don't over-promise. If you over-promise and under-deliver, the person's trust will just break with you. It will go down. You have to consistently show that you can do some things. There is always a compromise. I think we can't always get all we want. Sometimes it has to be good enough. Yes, we were talking about that earlier. We were talking about Winnicott's study. When it talks about good enough parenting, when it's just enough, when we've got kids in hospital. So look up Winnicott as well as your Ainsworth and your Bowlbys. They matter as well. So it's very important. If you've had a fall, listen, if people can get over this as a fall, when people can overcome like having an affair, we can also do it, but it needs talking about. It needs to be discussed in the room. When somebody has an affair, what I find and what you'll find is when, well, you won't because you're not a therapist, but if you see couples or if you are a therapist, what happens is people come in the room and they'll say things like, so is he richer than me? Is he cleverer than me? Is he wealthier than me? Is he more articulate than me? Has he got a bigger cock than me? Is he better in bed? Did he make you come? How was it? Did you scream for him like a bitch do? Like, we ask those questions. Or she says, are they tighter than me? Are they better than me? Are they younger than me? Are they nicer than me? Are they fitter? And we've got these ridiculous questions. Or they say all of the above. Well, is it because I don't identify as one or the other? Is it about me? We ask the ridiculous questions because we're not willing to go in the real insecurity that sits underneath all of that to say that I am human. Look, if you want the truth, I would love to do the research on this. I would argue that a shit ton, which means most BDSM relationships, end up being not BDSM given 3 to 4 years down the line. A lot of them turn vanilla. Why? There's a PhD in the making there for somebody, I tell you. Why do they? Is it that's our form of intensity that comes up at first? Do the two people actually want the dynamic, or was it that the dynamic that brought them together in the first place? I'm working with a couple. I have lived that together for 6 years. Yes, we do live it. It's very common, very normal, more than you think. I see it all the time. Really is very common. A lot of people end up in a lot more of a vanilla setting, and the people that you don't think will as well, or people end up leaving because it isn't quite giving them what they want, so relationships break up. However, so do normal non-BDSM relationships. What the fuck normal means, who knows? But if you've got people who are vanilla relationships, they break up too, because relationships break down. It's the choices and the work that we make to put into them to bring them back up. So you need to have a conversation with somebody. You need to say, what is it? Can you give me some time? What would it look like every day? What is it you want? And this is what I'm willing to put in. And you need to have that really uncomfortable conversation that says, oh, that's really nice. I just had a really nice direct message. You're so freaking awesome. I so appreciate this time and energy. This was needed. Thank you. That's really sweet. I'm smiling now and blushing a little bit and probably need to pee, but let's not talk about that. Right, so it's really important that energy is what you need to take into that relationship. Are you in this with me? Do you want to do this no matter what? Because a lot of the time, let's go back to separation anxiety. I concur. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you. It's very sweet. But so when we feel insecure about things, let's go back to that separation anxiety and bring it into this. We're so frightened of not doing something or not being enough for somebody that actually what we're frightened is that they're going to leave us or it's not going to work out. So a little technique you can use, I love, is we are safe. And this isn't okay by me. Always start with a we are safe. If you genuinely mean that. I am in this relationship. I'm not going anywhere. And I want to sort this out with you. And then we also need to break it down to when you do this, I experience this as my own emotional experience and I want this to change. Not you fucking made me or not okay. And if you just go on with, but I'm insecure, I don't know if I can be your dominant or whatever. Do you know what? If you keep saying that, I'm going to believe you. We need to take the presence and we need to be dominant if that's what we're going to be. I was talking to a client the other day who has quite a heavily pregnant wife. He gave her a severe warning. Can you still do corporal punishment when somebody's pregnant? Yes, you can, actually. And fuck me, he really did corporally punish her, and it was quite extreme. And then when we were talking about it, and she said, yeah, but look at this, I've got a mark, you should feel guilty. And I said, we have an interesting dynamic as a three. Like, why are you believing her right now? She's playing you. And she smiled, and he went, are you? And she said, maybe. She's always pushing for those little bits and pieces to get more, to get those extra things, because she wants that dominance all the time. That is also not possible. He's caring for her as a pregnant wife. He's caring for her as a mum. He's caring for her as a human being. When we care for somebody as well, especially if somebody's been ill or not well, then the care also takes away from the sexual tension and the different things that we have as well. So we need to have a conversation about what does dominance look like and what is it you mean. So Lola says, interestingly, even in a relationship with limitations where play partnership is at the center, this was unexpected to me, and then I considered and decided whether I'm happy to accept the reduction. I think you need to have a conversation at the beginning of the relationship and say, when our DS fails or decreases, when our BDSM fails or decreases, when our MS fails or decreases, what is our strategy? How do we want to play this? What would we do? If you were in this position and you wanted a dominant to change and step up, what would you want from them?
Oh, probably just communication, to be honest. I mean, discussion about everything that you said, consistency, conversation, going back to square one, going back to basics, looking at what's occurred between then and now.
What's changed?
Yeah, what's changed? What's changed and why? You know, I'm all about the why. Why has this happened? What can we do about it? How do we overcome it? You know, and you can never occupy the same space again. I think it's about having different expectations as well. It's a different space. It's about growing together. It's about overcoming the past and moving forward. I think that's really important. And
start small.
Yeah.
So if you're going to say, like, this is okay, let's go back to binge eating, right? I'll tell you what you should do if you're binge eating. You need to stop eating. Fuck, I mean, that is a ridiculous fucking statement, isn't it? And how can someone do that? I know, not only do you need to stop eating, but you need to eat 600 calories. Never eat 600 calories. Don't ever do a very low calorie diet. I can't tell you what it does to your insides, and you'll always put on weight. And it will take you 3 times the amount of exercise in order to create the same situation. I can point you to all the fucking science. Not a problem, right? So, so you need to eat a lot less, plus you need to exercise, and you need to drink a lot of water. You need to change your outlook. Go. Fuck, who doesn't feel overwhelmed at that? That's ridiculous. Nobody can do that. I had my my daughter's partner's niece used to live with me, and she is morbidly obese. And she said to me, please, will you help me lose weight? And I said, sure. Are you sure you want to do this and you want to listen to me? She said, I really do. And I said, fantastic. She went, where do I start? And I said, I want you to buy a water bottle like this, and I want you to drink one every day. Do you know what she said? Was that it? And I was like, yeah, that's where I want to start for a week. Well, that's not going to fucking work, is it? Because you want it all and you want it now. And this is the problem with this sort of thing as well. Start small. Put one small thing in that you can do consistently and regularly and be reliable over. It takes 3 months roughly to create a habit. It ain't 2 weeks. It's 3 fucking cunting months. Start small. And then when you've done that and you've succeeded at it, add another small thing in. Small, very small. Don't try and go in and go be uber dominant and say, right, I'm beating you tonight, I'm fucking your ass till you bleed, and I'm going to tell you what a useless cunt you are, and I'm going to totally sort you out. We're going to be so good by tomorrow. No, you're not. She's probably going to have an STI and feel very uncomfortable and not so great, trust me, or he is, whatever, or they are. Gender's irrelevant. You have to build this up really, really small.
So you're much more reserved than me. I was going to say pick 3 small things that you used to do in the beginning. You're saying,
yeah,
get back the
1, 2, 3, small.
What happened? You know, what were those things that you consistently did that added something to the dynamic? You know, they don't have to be sexual. They don't have to be overly BDSM. They have to be 3 kind of ritualistic or habitual behaviors that reinforce the dynamic that used to work for you, that's gone away. Reintroduce them. That's exactly where I would start on that scenario.
Yeah. Small little things that are easy to do. If you've got kids or you've got your own shit going on, get into therapy, get some help. If you've got kids, you have to take them into this dynamic. Not with you, that would be really weird. You have to take account of them. That's called something weird, and those people aren't welcome in this workshop. You have to make sure that you can do something that you can actually manage, and what creates the power exchange and the balance. So find the things that work, to fine tip that make you feel good. And that means you're going to sit down and say, right, If you had to pick 1, 2, 3, don't care, small things out of our manual or out of what we've spoken about, what things can we put into play that I know I can be consistent with, that I know that you will respond to? What's the consequence if you don't do it? How do I work with that? Listen, if you want your kids to be better behaved, I've turned it on to kids again. That's weird, but let's go with this for a second. If you want your children to be better behaved, what we have to do and think about is consequences, and children buy into consequences if you involve them in discussion. So what do you think I should do to you if you don't tidy your bedroom? I think you should take all my electronic goods away and punish me and throw me out the house. Well, that's a bit extreme, sweetheart. Let's maybe not start there. That's unrealistic. But let's say I do take all your electronic goods away. All of them? Your phone, your tablet, your PS, whatever it is you've got, or your Xbox, whichever one it is, all of those things, and that's all okay. Or like, you know, I'm going to take away your hairdryer, your straighteners, your makeup, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter what you've got. What shall I do? Okay, are you serious then? And then you start writing it out. So you have an idea of a chart and a reward chart. Oh, I wrote about this the other day. I'm really sorry. If you're a penis owner, I apologise for what I'm about to say. It's not a fucking reward to suck your cock. I'm sorry, it's not. You've been such a good girl, you can suck my cock. You've been such a good boy, you can suck my cock. It's not a fucking reward. That's our enjoyment together. That's our sexual pleasure. That's what we both like doing. Lots of people don't like doing it. But it's not a fucking reward. It isn't. Find out what motivates that person. It could be time. It could be a small gift. It could be... Somebody wrote on this thing I wrote the other day and said, oh, I just buy them everything. Well, no, that's ridiculous as well. It could be quality time. It could be something that we both like doing together. Sex and play are something we both enjoy. It's just not a fucking reward. Don't hold it back from me. If I want to suck your cock and I'm your submissive, or I want to suck your cunt, actually, why can't I say I really want to? What can't we do? But it's not a reward. People really need to get over that one. I'm sorry, they do. You've been such a good girl, I'm going to fuck you. No, I'm not feeling that one at all. Sorry. I thought we fucked anyway. Well, now I've got to work for it. Fuck off. Or you've been such a good boy, or you've been such a good kitten, or you've been such a good whatever. We've really got to look at the way we use this stuff. It's a reward for you. I saw somebody just before lockdown, and he turned around and he was saying things to me like, I bought you something. And he would get out this like body stocking, and I went, you haven't bought me anything. You bought that for you. I'm not a brat. I'm not a very grateful submissive. And he said to me, no, but it's for you. And I went, no, it's not. I don't like wearing those things. I will love wearing it for you. It is not for me at all. It is for you. I fucking hate dressing up. Oh, go upstairs, put it on, put your heels on. Fucking hate heels too. You want to buy me a present? This is what it looks like. You want to do something? Get off the phone from your fucking mother and spend some time with me. Let's not go into that. Or, you know, like, I've just cleaned your kitchen for you or your bathroom. I don't want a reward. Let's watch something nice together. Let's do something differently together. Sex and sucking your cock, I'm sorry, it's not a reward. It's a very important part of the bonding in the relationship. So think about those sort of things. Ask the other person what they want. It really matters. And people are writing about SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time. Yeah, that can be as well. I got to go run. I learned a lot today. Thank you, little baby switch. I still want to know who you were on the phone to earlier. I'm really sorry, but I do. So it's really important that ask somebody what they want. Take their languages of love test and make sure and find out what it is that they're after. It makes a difference. Bring it back. The way you start is with a conversation with the person that you want to make a relationship with. That's how you start. And you say, what is it we can do? Because you're not in it alone. That's the thing about vulnerability. If you just go away and say, I'm thinking about that, then you're doing it by yourself. Show your vulnerability by going to your partner and saying, hey, I want to restart this dynamic. What are the small things that we can do? What would you suggest? What are the options? Zoe says, if that was the case, I'd never get laid. Eye rolls. Oh, be careful about eye rolls. Eye rolls are the biggest indicator of a relationship breakup, according to the Gottman Institute. It's true. You are more likely to get divorced or to break up if you eye roll a lot of the time. You know, that is one of the biggest indicators of a couple about to break up. So, okay, don't eye roll. That's another one, right? So put that in there as a rule. And if you do, this is your punishment. Wow, I didn't know that. I don't do it to many people. Well, how many people do you want to break up with? Fucking hell. Right. So you need to communicate first of all. Then you need to put small, achievable things that are in place. Oh, that explains so much with my mother's behaviour. Well, there you go. You've learned something really important today about eye rolling. If you want to learn about statistics and relationships, go to the Gottman's Institute, Gottmans. It'll teach you an awful lot. I do think as well, if you go for a couples therapist, ask them what their training is for couples, ask them what their training is for children, ask them what their training is for, have you done something separate? Or what's your experience of this? Like, those things make a real difference. How many times have you seen someone? What are your hours in? How does it work? Even if they haven't done training, they might have an awful lot of experience in as well, and that makes a difference. But you could go to someone else to facilitate this, or you can do it yourself, but you have to facilitate it with the other person. And that means accepting the vulnerability. I think every single dom and every single sub is an imposter. All of them are imposters. No one is a dominant of anybody else unless it's given to them. Nobody is a submissive of anybody else unless it's given. So we're all imposters. We're all in that together. You can pretend to be swagger around the club with your fucking great big leather belt on with 53 hanging things from it. It doesn't make you a good dominant. How much dust is gathering on that shit? Have you used it before? Does it come from Ann Summers? What experience do you have? And just because you're good with a flogger doesn't mean you're a good dominant to me psychologically. All of these things are about learning. We're all fucking imposters in BDSM to a certain extent, because it's all about learning to grow together. No one's got a qualification. Who here's got a qualification in BDSM? Anyone? What the fuck does it look like? It just doesn't mean anything, does it? So it's all about learning and growing together. And you have to start by saying, I feel like an imposter. I don't feel like I can do this. I'm not quite sure how to manage this. Sounds a bit like circle of consent work, something I suggest doing that might be for them, or it might be for me, and it's important. I've got a massive piece on consent writing. It's got the circle of consent in there. It is one of the things that you can do. Miss Vegan Vixen says, I love John Gottman. His workshop and the art of science of love is life-changing. I really agree. The Gottman Institute is one of the best things you can look at when it comes to working with couples and doing couples therapy. And you can look at some of this stuff and why. Lola says, this is one of the reasons I've been reluctant to engage in dominance at first, because I did not feel competent at it. You're never going to feel completely competent. You know those things where we've got unconscious incompetence, then we've got conscious incompetence, then we've got unconscious competence, then we've got conscious competence. Have you heard of those before? I am proposing a top one, and that is complacent competence. And I see a lot of BDSM relationships who get into that fifth level because they think they know it all. They don't need to learn anything. They don't come to a workshop. They know it all. They're fine. Fuck off. I have to go to classes to improve my knowledge every single year, or read books or do stuff. I have to prove what I'm doing. I owe fucking Caris. I owe her 100 hours of a fucking attendance certificates for these. 100. We have to prove our work to people to show that we're fully learning. What do you have to do in BDSM? Fuck all. Look, you can be consciously competent, which is a fantastic place to be. It might be around rope. It doesn't mean that you can then do something brilliantly psychologically with someone. Look, unless you've learned about psychology, resus, biology, physiology, where certain organs are in the body, learn that shit first. And then learn how to tie someone up, and then learn how to hit someone, and then learn to do all these things, because this is all about communication. It's all about care. If you can't talk to someone, I don't care how you rope them, it won't work eventually. It just doesn't. So even though that's the 4 stages of competence, I do propose always that there is a complacency at the top. Now, this person who's asked this question isn't complacent. They're not aware, actually. My 5th one is a made-up one. It's my idea, so you won't find it anywhere. So it's my idea around that, where we just get, and I see it in BDSM an awful lot. At least this person isn't that. That's a good thing. However, what we've got to think about as well is we also need to pretend to play the parts a little bit. It is attractive. We like that as well. It's okay to play the part. If you go back to the 80s and you think of things like think, act, believe, become, it makes a real difference. That is my writing on consent. I think that's everything you need to know. Consent is in there, and the circle of consent is in there as well. Thank you, Nemoria, and thank you, Caris. Lo says, I have an understanding of what to do and how, although someone recently said about me in front of others that I am some super dominant, whatever flowery language, and I had to dispute it loudly because that's ridiculous. We all know something, but none of us know. Yeah, we all learn something. Learning never stops. I agree with you. This has been great as usual. Thank you all, especially Deb. Thank you. Love you. Thank you very much. If you're going to go, I find it difficult to find line between expressing needs, wants as a sub and topping from the bottom. It feels as I often overstep. Ask the person if you're overstepping. That is a thought and that is a feeling. And what we were talking about earlier is you need to question your thoughts and feelings. Is that a fact for the other person? Listen, do I top from the bottom sometimes? Yeah. I remember sleeping with a very experienced person who runs some clubs in London's is a plural, runs clubs in London and does all these things and really thinks quite a lot of himself. And actually, to be fair to David, he said, fucking don't go there, Deb. But I did. And it was quite a long time ago. And he was punching me. I like being punched. And in the end I went, could you stop that, please? Oh, God. And why? Because he was causing damage to my back. He was really hurting me. And I said, you don't know what you're doing. Oh, of course I'm going to stop it. That's not topping from the bottom. That's called fucking sensible. Private message. Thank you too. It's been invaluable. Thank you. Come back next week and we'll cover other things. Let me know what you want me to cover next week as well. And I really have to go in a minute because I have a life and I've spent 3 hours doing this and I really apologize. I've gone way over today. But you need to start with communication. It's good. Topping from the bottom, sometimes actually what you need is a slap because you actually want someone to dominate you and tell you to shut the fuck up. You need to walk that. That's very careful. Sometimes you do know better. And if you do know better, then think about the person that you're playing with because that's a danger potentially, or it's a danger because you will end up topping from the bottom. So get it all out before the session. This is what I want you to look at. Do you know resus? Do you know this stuff? How are you with this? Because I know all that shit, but I can't do it if I'm the one fucking choked out on the floor. I can't, I'm not going to go up and say, oh God, thank fuck for that. Thank God I know what I'm doing. I'm nearly dying. Like I can't do it in that moment. So I need you to know that. They're all things that we have to check out and make sure that we're okay with. But all of this starts with communication. That's the key to everything. It's not fair, is it? Because it's effective communication. So it's our capacity to sit down opposite a partner and be vulnerable. And Cinder says, sometimes you need to step up and protect yourself. Yeah, like chronic wraparounds and shit like that. And you're hitting my kidneys. Do you know, I look at pictures of people like Damon Danes, who I fucking love and find incredibly sexy in his own way. And I love some of the pictures. However, I would also argue that 99.9% of the pictures reoccurring are in places on the body that will cause permanent damage. The sort of play that he does is going to cause serious permanent damage. Would I quite like to be beaten up by him? Yeah, I would. But I might be saying, that's my kidneys, that's my spine, fuck off, because they're everywhere. Like, and it's the damage. Like, I'm like, oh, God, okay. How he hasn't burst someone's boobs yet, I don't know. It's just really interesting. But would I quite like to be? Yeah, of course I would. And it looks fantastic, but it is a bit extreme and a bit fancy. Like, plus he always darkens his picture so it looks so much worse and so much better with all those filters and shit. It really does. And if you watch the pattern of how he plays, I find it fascinating because he misses one off and then they end up disappearing after a while because he's got a new toy and he's playing with this thing. Again, really shit communication. Not from him. I don't know him. From Adam, I don't know whether he's doing that. I'm talking about generally. It all starts with us talking. Who did you say? I'm not telling you now. Damon Danes, Damon D-E-A-M-N, and he's got a menagerie of beautiful women who all play and live together, and they live this idyllic life where they all have this perfect submissive setup. It's perfect. It's a bit like the Kardashians, isn't it? But we all look to it and think, oh, that's nice. But actually, if you look at the pictures and you look at where he hits people, oh, I'm sorry, it's in all the wrong places and it's going to cause a lot of damage to the people long term. And believe me, I'm someone who has suffered from that. I've been punched so many times, I've both the bursts are on my hips. So I have hip injections maybe twice a year, less so recently after cancer, oddly. Maybe the steroids did something, I don't know. But yeah, it makes a difference. I've gone on for fucking long enough. I'm really sorry. I went a whole half hour over. I'm not changing the workshops to hours and hours and two. So it was just today. If you have any questions you would like for next week, please send them to me. We'll answer them, whatever you want to do. And we'll start looking at it. I am thinking, what should I do around whether I do them every other week or once a month, or whether you still want them every week. So could you kind of go on to FetLife and let me know what you'd rather? And also let me know any questions you want for next week. Every week.
Everyone's going to say
every week. I'm a weekly fan every week. But you know that I do. Thank you. So if you want them every week, let me know. It doesn't mean I'm going to carry them up. The numbers are still big. Like we still get 60, 70 people in. Whatever is best for you every week. Thank you. Super insightful. I really appreciate that. Every week. Thank you. So let me know some questions that you want answered. Remember, it's down to you. I did say something about eating disorders. Would somebody like eating disorders covered a little bit? That'll take half an hour. And to try and dissolve the myths. I always say I will only come along when it's interesting topics, but then it's always interesting topics. I think that, even when you don't expect them to be interesting, I really agree that weekly, if you teach, if I can teach you to do the string, no, I'm not taking that on as well. Eating disorders, we'll be making it a weekly thing. Thanks again. Thank you. Thanks, Debs. Every week is great, but I realise you have a life too. I do. I'm happy to do these. I love them. Thank you from New Zealand. Thank you too. So we'll start with eating disorders, but there's 2 other questions because I do half an hour for each. Well, clearly not today. So let me know the 2 other questions. I would like them to be something to do with BDSM, something to do with mental health, psychology, those sort of things. Then we can look at them. So I will look at eating disorders. That will be a start next week. And ask me 2 other questions. You can inbox me, and we will see you. You coming next week, or are you working?
No, I'm gonna both. Yes,
Both.
and
Yes. Working and coming.
Power of and.
Definitely got. Okay, so the person who just said I've got a long question, just chuck it at me. That's fine. I will try and abbreviate it. And we will see you next week. Wank away. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Finland still. Thanks. Oh, thanks. It's so amazing. People all around the world. See you later. So I've got 2 questions already. So I need 1 more question for next week, or we can do a Q&A session here. So whatever comes up, we will bring up. It's like testing me. I like those. They're like a test. That's how they started. Walking the line between DS and vanilla within a dynamic. I don't know what that question means. Turn it into a question and chuck it at me. Does that make sense? Chuck it at me. I'll DM. Thank you very much. All right. See you later. Bye, guys. Take care. Bye.